very good. Commissioners,
Sir? You really want your evaluation? Let's roll with it.
Commissioners, just to bring you up to date, I am very delinquent. We made a couple of attempts to give Mr. Peeler his annual performance review. Because of scheduling issues and illnesses throughout the county and other things, he's the last person to be evaluated to my knowledge, and since I am liaison to the maintenance department, I'm going to take the lead on this, so I'd like to go through the evaluation as I have it prepared, present to him, and then commissioners, I'd like to open the discussion to you folks for your comments and your input. This is an annual performance review. The areas of performance evaluations: quality of work, quantity of work, relationships with others, initiative and self-reliance, and the last category is dependability. Summary appraisal definitions of performance categories. The description under the descriptors: exceptional performance, performance of contribution to goals of department success is the highest order. This is there is minimal room for improvement. On the consistency exceeds expected level of performance, performance exceeds job requirement. I'm not reading what I've classified him, I'm reading the definition so we have an understanding. Consistently exceeds expected level of performance, performance exceeds job requirements and normal expectations, contributed significantly to department office success over beyond job demands. Expected level of performance, performance meets all requirements. Let me bypass the rest of those definitions and get into the meat of the performance review. In the quality of work, 5 levels of scoring. 1 is unsatisfactory, 2 is less than expected, 3 is expected, 4 consistently exceeds, 5 is exceptional. In the quality of your work, Mr. Peeler, I put you a category 4, consistently exceeds in my comments. From my viewpoint, Al has a very strong grasp on what is needed to keep our facilities clean, safe, and for all, and comfortable for employees to work in them day to day. I am also very pleased with the preventive maintenance procedures that Al has placed on both old and new equipment and the facilities that he oversees throughout the county. I appreciate his forward thinking of what comes next in caring for our county facilities. Again, the preventive maintenance. In parentheses, and I put, and look at our old courthouse. Close parentheses. Area number 2, quality of work. I gave you a rating of 5, which is exceptional. My comment is, wow, exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. Al and his team have maintained all of our current facilities. He has been appointed project manager for our new construction, jail maintenance, and started the transition to move from the old to the new facilities. Along the way, we threw in CDC COVID compliance guidelines, not to mention revised jail standards, along with elected official requests to make their offices more sanitized, and also requesting sneeze guards, hand sanitizers, tissues, and whatever else was needed to put employees and citizens at ease. So again, I gave you a 5 rating in that second category. The third category, relationship with others, I gave you a 3, which is that's an expected rating.
Fair enough.
Although Al is not as tough as he looks, he does maintain an expected working relationship with those he comes in contact with day to day. He can be and is rather direct with some of his comments and language, but generally at the end of the conversation, you know where you stand with him. As many phone calls and emails as he gets on a daily basis, it is understood how some might think he has gotten short with one or another. My relationship with Al is a 4.5 to 5. He keeps me well informed. Item number 4, initiative and self-reliance. I rated you a 4. That rating is consistently exceeds. You are very much self-directed. You ask for input if you feel the need or that it is best to inform me on the item or situation. As with others, I do not wonder if you were sitting idle waiting for the next direction from me. I don't have the expertise to give you that direction in many instances. Again, I go back to your initiative in creating preventive maintenance programs for our county assets. I am also very appreciative of warranties that you have gotten with many of our providers. Many save, problems solved. Item number 5, dependability. I rated you a 5, and that would be an exceptional rating. You are always here as needed. If time is needed to be away, thus far you have requested that time in advance. Also, the requests are seldom. In many instances, your hours are not regular, i.e. ADT fire alarms, frozen pipes, community service projects, and days. I do not spend my time wondering if you are at work or not. In summary of your appraisal, it says, in summary, I believe, comma, I know, comma, Grimes County is very fortunate to have someone of your skill level, your knowledge, experience, and education to have working in this capacity. I say that not from just the maintenance work that you manage, but also the way you manage the community service program we host here in the county. I would like to see your workload reduced, but I don't think that will occur much over the next 12 to 24 months. Thank you for the job you do. Overall, on a scale of 1 to 5, I gave you a 4.2. I think that you consistently exceed expected levels of performance. Supervisor comments, my thoughts are clearly stated in the summary above. I have a place here for commissioner comments. Plans and objectives in the coming year. I want you to maintain current county facilities, help get the hospital in order from maintenance needed, and build a PM program for their future. Determine best plan for the vacant morgue. That didn't mean fill it up with bodies, okay? Coordinate with me and the Commissioner's Court a review of all county real estate and help determine best use, including buy, sell, or trade properties, and then a place for other Commissioner Court goals. So that's all I have, Commissioners. I open the comments up to you, and I'll be glad to note any particular comments that you'd like to make in any of those categories, or if you disagree with any of my comments, I'll be glad to discuss those with you.
Well, I'll start first.
Perfect.
With me. I want to say thank you. Your performance, I agree with everything the judge has said. On top of that, you not only work with the judge, but you work also directly with me, with the annex and the hospital, and those type of things. So I appreciate it that I can bounce ideas off of you, and you give me feedback and give me also direction. So on top of everything else, you stepped up to the plate, took on a large project, larger than we've ever done within the county, and it has overseen that through COVID, throughout not only COVID, but now shortages that have transpired because of COVID. And you keep plugging along, and we appreciate that. Even during illness, we thank you for what you did. I like the goals that he has. You and I sat down yesterday and talked about preventive maintenance throughout the county. Whatever facility that Grimes County owns, you're big on preventive maintenance. So it's much needed because it hasn't been there in the past. So we're going to move forward and try to accomplish some of those goals. Some of them now, he's talking about the morgue.
Yeah.
Good luck, okay?
I know.
But hopefully we'll get there together.
We'll get there.
So thank you very much. That's all I had to add.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'll go next. I agree with what the judge said, what you said. Al has stepped up every time that we've asked him to, and I certainly appreciate him taking over the jail maintenance.
I bet you do.
That's been a challenge for everybody that's been there,
Yeah.
and we're getting there slowly. So you're doing a great job.
We'll get it there.
I also agree with everything the judge and commissioner has said. I appreciate everything you've done for us, stepping up and taking on more responsibility. I really like the fact that you've kind of helped bring in some control systems, kind of help reduce some of our costs on the electric bill, especially at the fairgrounds.
Right.
I guess as a goal, maybe we kind of keep looking into more of that kind of thing to see what else we can do to help improve that as well.
Yeah, I will. I guess it's my turn. Well, thank you, Al, for everything that you do. I guess most recently, just navigating the landmines that could occur with the building of a new facility, and you running interference or consulting or doing what you do as project manager has saved, I think, a lot of headache and probably some blood, sweat, and tears. So I appreciate that. But going back to what you do for the county, I mean, I think you saved the county more money than is actually realized, because before you got here in your current position as director of maintenance and project manager, we had a janitorial system, and each department was required to do their own maintenance. And as you and I have talked, and you have experience in seeing, sometimes people have the best intentions, but the lack of knowledge causes problems, and they're fixing things one way when it doesn't need to be fixed that way, just creating additional strains and costs. So I appreciate you stepping up and taking over that as far as getting everything going in the right direction in the preventative maintenance. I'm just thankful that you're with the county now, and going forward, I wish you the best of luck. And if you ever need anything, just feel free to come to the court. I think the court is behind you. Yes, sir.
Judge, I want to circle back around, and I want to.
You sound like a presidential spokesperson.
Well, I want to circle back around and say, let you all know in the court that I appreciate him. Yesterday, we were looking at the system that I had installed in terms of, what is it called? Humidity system in our building. And he was impressed, and that impressed me that he was impressed.
Yeah, she does have a very good system out there.
Okay, so I want to say that made me feel good, Al, that I met Al's expectation. So thank you, Al.
You're welcome.
Mr. Peeler, this I submit to you. I'd like you to take it at your earlier convenience, since I'm delinquent in getting this completed. Would you review it? Once you've reviewed it, you can check agree or disagree, get it back to me so I can get it back to HR, okay?
You want to do that?
No, sir. I mean, if you don't have anything going on right now, did you have any comments that you wanted to make?
I just think that, yeah, I do, and I appreciate all the comments that Commissioners Court and the judges said. That being said, when an evaluation comes up like that, that's a lot to live. That's a lot of pressure. I'm glad you guys feel that way about the maintenance department. It's part of my love, so
Great.
thank you.
All right, the man who, as a baby, was featured on this. Never mind.
Are you calling me a baby, John? Really?
Timing's everything. That's the key to comedy.
Are we recording? John just called me a baby.
With that, Commissioners, we have an agenda item number 3, discuss and review the Grimes County FY 2022 budget Would you like to take about a 6 or 7 minute break before we get into that?
Please.
All right. With that being said, we're going to take a break for about 7 minutes. The time is 9. We are back from recess. The time is 1 p.m. The date is Wednesday, August the 25th, 2021. This is a continuation of a workshop meeting of Commissioners Court of Grimes County. We are still at the 114 West Buffington Avenue, Anderson, Texas. We recessed as to give the auditors time to get some numbers, and whoever wanted to get some lunch, and they're going to be presenting some information to us. However, before we go to that, Commissioner Dobianski, I had input from the other 3 commissioners before we broke, and I did not give you an opportunity for input on any issues or concerns or thoughts that you have on the budget. So I'm going to step back, and if you have any comments that you wanted to make.
The only comment that I have is the annual cleanup event. I know a lot of people have called me about tire traders and all that. I know we're going to get calls about that. If we get some of this money to cover from the other programs to cover some of the federal money to cover some of those, maybe we can put this back in later in the year. With some of that money, but do we need to budget that in order to do that, or can we just?
With what money?
Like, if we were reimbursed for, say like that generator that they're buying for the hospital, or something like that, if we get some money back on the project that we have budgeted, can we take that money and do a budget amendment to do this project later in the year?
So the ARPA money, if you're specifically, I'll address the ARPA money. The ARPA money will come in, and that is already budgeted for. If you would like to transfer monies from one line item to another, definitely we can do that. But the ARPA money will not be new monies coming in, because we are fully aware that we're going to receive half of that next year, this upcoming year. So the answer to your question is, we wouldn't be able to do that just because we know that. But we could, however, take, you have the ability to move money from one line item to the other, or if the court chooses, it's not unforeseen, it's not an emergency, so I would not recommend doing it from fund balance.
From fund balance.
I would not recommend that.
Because I want to be clear on what I'm hearing you say. Okay, he was saying the project, which I just talked to environmental a little bit earlier, we can function with like it is now, but because we didn't receive those grant funds from BBCOG, which we have a portion in there that we do cleanups with.
Yes.
Okay, it lessened the amount, but we have to show the BCOG that we can sustain a project. It might be a smaller event, but we can still do an event. He's saying that if at some time in the year we receive, where we built in, say for instance, a 75 for the generator, and we get money from ARPA, can that 75,000 that we've already built into the budget be reallocated somewhere else?
You can definitely do a line item transfer from one line, yes, and
Yeah, that's what I was getting
you can do a line item transfer. I just heard the word new monies and they
No,
came in.
and that's what I thought you
wanted to
heard,
make sure.
so I
Yes.
just wanted to clarify for me and him.
Yes,
him.
you always have the ability to transfer.
Because as of now, she's saying she can actually do a small cleanup. It won't be as grand as we've been doing, but we can function like we are.
With her current budget that's in place for next year.
Yes.
Okay, or that will be approved for next year.
And hopefully, when we get that set up at Stone, the way she wants it over there, we can get some containers of our own to put out there to
Right.
handle some of this stuff that we're having issues getting.
And that's what we're hoping to. And she was good and grateful for the 10,000 that we're proposing
Yeah.
on the improvements.
And you know, we don't have to change the budget to do that. I mean, if that happens in the future, I'd like to see that.
Well, this could be, we could put the 10,000 in, and it would be a fund balance. It would come out of fund balance, because it wouldn't be a balanced budget, right? And the event, that way it's budgeted in the event that we do get the money that we expect, then it can be transferred.
What money is it that y'all are expecting? I guess I'm a little confused.
No. I mean, where we budgeted, I think Commissioner O'Mason speak about the generator, which should be covered under the ARPA funds.
Well, and that's budgeted, so I would not
So it
recommend
wouldn't
putting.
come out of, but it wouldn't come out of tax, then it wouldn't come out of revenue, which we haven't currently budgeted for revenue, or do we have it currently budgeted as?
We have it currently budgeted for revenue in building maintenance budget.
Yes.
And if he does not, if that is a covered expense by ARPA, we then can reclassify that expense out of, move it from 421's budget to the ARPA fund to show that that was covered by that. And at that point in time, I can prepare a line item transfer to move 10,000, if that's, because that's kind of what I'm hearing, to move 10,000 from building maintenance into CAT's line, into 488 or 83.
So if we budget it now, it would technically be fund balance until all that happens.
I wouldn't
So it'd
say
be an
that.
unbalanced budget.
I wouldn't say, yes, you can, yes. If
It
that's
would
how you
technically be an
choose.
unbalanced budget, but, you know, if we fully expect it to happen.
But that's not what he's saying.
No, y'all are saying one thing, and he's suggesting potentially something different, but if we budget it now and we don't count on ARPA, we would budget it out of fund balance to have a balanced proposed budget.
You can
Correct.
do that, but then that gives the ability for her to spend the 10,000 and also for Al to spend that 10,000. So that leaves that open for both. So it just depends on what direction the court wants to go.
And speaking.
Oh, I guess that would, we already have a line item here at 0. So we can just transfer that money, in other words. We don't have to-
Yes, she
okay.
has the
I
line
was thinking,
item
yeah,
for it.
so we have the line item, so we can do that.
And we have money in the line item
Okay.
already,
Yeah.
which is the 7,500. That's why I said she could do a small cleanup
Okay.
event out of that.
So it wouldn't cost the full, I mean, we could probably get by with a little bit, just a little bit more than to give us what we're used to doing anyway.
Yes, because the difference is usually about, we're talking now, if she has 7,500, it runs us a little bit under $9,000 to do 3 events.
Okay.
And we didn't get the help from the grant and BBCOG, but
So we
it's
could
just
essentially
a
for.
small difference.
Yeah, for another $1,500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll have to be able to spread that from somewhere else on a line item.
Okay. I was thinking we needed an additional 10 to do what we're used to doing.
And I told her, you know, we had money still, if we saw where we need to do it, like a strategic plan and some 424 contingencies, but she said we're good right now as far as doing a small event. She's just grateful for the 10,000 we put this morning in the budget for the dump site project.
For now, on the annual cleanup event, I'm gonna put, we have that covered.
So now, are you saying 10,000?
No, it's just, we've got it covered with.
This is just a project list, we're not,
Okay.
from
But your
our
project,
conversation, I think we just said, or what I heard, was that if we did the cleanup project, we'd be about 1,500 short.
yeah.
My comment
A little
is
bit under
this,
9.
okay, well, this 10,000 that we have on the list, I'm suggesting that the annual cleanup event will be covered, because surely in a $34 million budget, we can find 1,500 to cover the additional cost on that.
So we're gonna change that number then.
It's just gonna stay on the list, and what he's saying is the court has discussed how we could possibly do the smaller events if we need the bigger event, and it costs, we may be like $1,500 short, I guess is his understanding, and so we can find that.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to get that number, which you said was 1,500, right? That's what I heard.
Yes, but I'm not looking to budget 1,500 more, I'm just saying, we've got that number down to 1,500.
Okay, I just wanna make myself a note though.
Okay.
Well, I don't see the number, the 488,
So for the
solid
clean,
waste. annual,
The cleanup events are rentals of the trailer. Isn't that the cost? So then that goes under rentals and contracts.
oh, it is under.
Yes, because it would be rentals of it.
Okay, anything else, Commissioner Dobianski? That's it. All right. Now, back to what we recessed for. Does the auditors have a number prepared on the difference, or rather, I say prepared, what is the cost difference between a 4% COLA and a 5% COLA?
So we have worked, since we have recessed, and we came up with approximately $65,000 difference.
So if you go from 5, as we've have planned, or as proposed, and we go to 4, then we have $65,000 that we can allocate to items here on the project list.
Approximately.
Approximately, fair enough. Did y'all get lunch?
I snuck in a sweet potato, she has not. I gave her some chips.
It's all Commissioner Mallett's fault, and I apologize for it.
He owes you lunch.
But Mallett Brothers Barbecue, something is going to be worked out.
Turkey.
You said 65,000?
Approximately.
If he's buying, get a whole plate of meat.
Get the whole
I
business.
mean, get 3 or 4, the 3 or 4
Get
meat
the
plates.
3 meat and the 2 side choice,
Okay.
and the to-go box.
And put the turkey in it to go by.
We'll get to the box. Okay, so the question that I will ask the commissioners before we go any further, is it your desire to go from a 4% COLA to a 5% COLA? If it is your desire, go from a 5% COLA to a 4% COLA, is that your desire? And then we start looking for a way to spend the $65,000? Or are you most comfortable with the 5% COLA and leaving the few items on the project list that we have?
Judge, I do have a question. We had to advertise, post in the paper, the 5% for the elected officials.
Yeah?
I'm saying, that's already ran.
It's already gone out, but that was done on the preliminary. And
The proposed.
if the decision was made, we'd have to repost and just say that these are the numbers now.
Or not adjust the elected officials.
That's true. We could leave the elected officials at 5% COLA and the employees at 4% COLA.
Making sure everybody's underpaid.
I just want to add my 2 cents. Earlier you said the national COLA was 6.5%.
Did I say 6.5 or 4?
6.5.
Okay. I know it's over 6%, that's what's been advertised of recent. And gasoline prices are advertised at 42% over a year ago.
And our COLA affects everybody.
Yes.
I am comfortable with it at 5%, that's the question you had. I'm comfortable with it at 5%. We have visited once before on a lot of these projects. And so where we are now, I'm good with that, and I'm good with it, leaving it at 5%. That's just my take on it.
That's fine. But I appreciate the question is if we take it from 5 to 4, how much does that give us? And is that 65,000 that's been shared by the commissioners, is there something on the project list that's high enough of a high enough importance that we would want to allocate or get some of those projects done or a project done? So I've heard from Commissioner Walker. Anybody else want to make a comment?
I mean, I think I hate to say this, and we keep betting on what we're gonna get, but, I mean, on the project list from earlier, we had $75,000 for a generator. I feel fairly confident that that's probably gonna get approved. It's a fairly significant amount more than that, I think, but that being said, whatever that amount is, we have that $75,000 put in the maintenance budget for that generator. If we use 10 of that to fund the cleanup, that still leaves about $65,000, or at least $65,000, that we could potentially pick a project off with the understanding that it's tentative and contingent on all the dominoes falling in the right places.
So you're suggesting removing the 75,000?
No, we keep the 75 in there because we're gonna have to buy a generator, whether we get it approved by ARPA or not. We still have to buy that. We still have to do our part in that. But I'm fairly confident that the ARPA money's gonna
If you
pay for it.
feel that way too, we can, and I'm by no means, because Al's not here, I thought he would be here. But if you feel like that 75,000 could potentially be covered by ARPA, you may place that in the contingency fund and then say that 75 is for, so it doesn't look like you're taking away from the building maintenance budget. And then once you do the line item transfer, you can say, okay, I want to transfer, if the generator is not covered, transfer that contingency to building maintenance. If the generator is covered, then if the court feels they need to transfer 10 to 488 or 65 or 75 to building maintenance, then you may do that as well. So then the contingency, it's not just in one specific budget, just because it's dependent upon whether or not it's covered by the ARPA funds. You have that ability to do that too. With Al not here, then I'm speaking, about his budget, but, so that's an option, I'm just throwing that out there as well.
I'm sure he would be okay with that since it's a designated fund that we're trying to, it's a designated expense.
I would prefer asking.
But I would like to ask him and see if there's any other projects he would like to do as well. But I mean, if we put it in contingency, it could still be, it'd go to projects that he might want to do, or I guess we can come to the Commissioners Court in order to move that anyway.
It would, either way it goes,
If we put it in there, then we can figure out where it might need to go.
Yeah, it just gives you the flexibility to be able to say, okay, we're moving this over here because, the ARPA covered it, or because he needs it and ARPA's not covering it, and that's you've already spoken about what your intent for the 75 is for, and so that can just be documented. But it was just a different side.
But if we put it in contingency, that gives more flexibility, and it wouldn't necessarily be coming from departmental to another department.
Right.
Department to another.
If you're done with your birthday nap, we need you in the workshop, please. Bye.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of ugly ones. But
His birthday doesn't really have any impact on his nap.
He naps more often than his birthday.
It's not 1:30 yet, he hasn't got up. Regardless of what day it is. But anyway, that's a side note.
While we're having a momentary lull, I am taking the liberty of the capital improvements for the fairgrounds. I'm just putting a line through that. I'm taking that off of the consideration at this point in time.
And I guess I asked you that previously, there's really no dire projects, right, or anything that would help us to even rent it out, later on.
Yeah, but we need $1 million too for that.
Well, yeah.
No, the court has been
I know we
generous
made
enough
strides, big strides in it.
to invest quite a bit of money. We need to hold what we got.
Yeah.
Randy's got enough money in there to do the proper maintenance on what we have right now, and
That's why I don't want anything else any other further improvements or anything else, because the progress we made, I don't want it to slow down.
I think he's looking at some grant opportunities for some other things. And we don't
Just got a
know.
notification on that.
We won't know till he gets some more information on some of those things, through associations and stuff. Probably won't be significant amounts, but could be. We'll just see when they come in.
The second item on the list, that 424 non-department strategic plan, There is some money on that, but I don't have anything truly in mind for that. I think we can continue with our strategic plan, do what we need to do, and even update our strategic plan with the minimal amount we have left in that budget line. So I'm going to take the liberty of scratching through that one, taking it off the list. The annual cleanup event, I think based on our conversation, we're only lacking $1,500 there, and we think we will have that covered. Then go to the bid for garbage, only $90,000. I do have a little bit of concern on that one, in that with the things that were the upgraded equipment, if we get the new provider, well, regardless of who we get, new or old, they're going to have to make some changes to the equipment over there, and I would believe that that cost would go up. I do know that one of the bids will incorporate the porta-cans and other auxiliary, I'll call them auxiliary items that go along with solid waste and garbage. But, and that being the case, I'm going to be surprised if we can do that within the 90,000. And we're really shooting in the dark to say, well, we really need to come up with another 10,000 or another 15,000. I know the auditor's advice has been, if you budget 90,000, then you tell that department live within that 90,000. That's fine, provided we can get the equipment we need to get the solid waste picked up. Because one thing about the solid waste, it's not a profit center, but it is a revenue generator. And I think that if we keep those facilities nice and appropriately mechanically staffed with personnel and all, people will continue to bring their solid waste there, which is far more preferable than living on the side of the road somewhere else. So, Jesse, I don't know how we would budget something like that. I mean, because you have, based on your history and everything, you have projected revenue for solid waste, do you not?
We have projected revenue.
Yeah, so you've already put some money into the budget as revenue coming in. I'm just saying that that number could be low from what we receive, or it could be right on the money, but if it's right on the money, then we're probably going to end up being short. So one of the areas, me speaking, on the project list, one of the areas of concern that I have is where we're showing we may need an additional 10,000, but it could be an additional 15,000, or it could be an additional whatever.
This is increased from 5,000, it increased 5,000 already. in this-
From 85 to the 90, yes ma'am.
And then we left in the amount of money for the porta cans because that's paid separately. So
Right.
that is in the rentals and contracts.
Do you know what that number is?
Off the top of my head,
No.
I do not, but I can find out for you real quick.
Okay, because that, if we knew what that number is, because we have 90,000 budgeted plus the porta can number. Is there anything else, Commissioner Walker, you can recall that is associated with the solid waste that would have been budgeted?
Is porta cans in her budget?
Yes, ma'am. Did you have any birthday pilot?
Nope.
If you want to revisit with him, I could be looking.
I have nothing to say to him.
You have nothing to say?
Not now. Think about redoing that evaluation.
Should've waited.
That was Cott's coconut pie too, wasn't it?
Yep. Should've gave you that 3, or
I'm sorry Mr. Walker's here because he'll give us input that I don't want to hear, but on the dump site improvements on the 10,000, we've had a lot of conversation about, is that coming out of the sale money, the property sale money, or is it not? And I know it frustrates you, sir, when we talk about this, but as we're scrambling for, we're dialing for dollars here, so to speak. I don't really know where we're at. We did get the quotes on those properties, the 3090 and the Stoneham, but those are just the appraisals. Right.
Which
And we're-
was,
We won't know until we actually go out for the auction,
Right.
what we're gonna get.
205 was the appraisal.
205 on the Stoner property and 50
50 on the
on the
3090.
Property.
205 sounds
I
low.
You know, I think we kind of beat this horse to death.
Yeah, we already added it to the budget, right?
I think it's an improvement that they need to budget, but the sale money, whatever comes in, don't do with it what you want.
We talked about a reserve the other day. When we were in court, we talked about a reserve in 205, even at an appraised amount, seems a little low for what the property's selling now.
That was my feeling, yes.
If anything, that ought to be our reserve,
Right.
I would think. And then let the bidders go at it, or the buyers go at it.
And that's my understanding of the law, that
Or even said
we
the
can't sell
10,000.
for less than the appraised value. So that would be the minimum reserve amount. And I think for a reserve amount, that's a good number. It's probably lower, but again, I'm only hearing about 2 possible bidders on this property, so I don't want to get overly optimistic with it.
But they might come out the woodwork. They do.
You don't know.
I'm gonna
That's
ask
why we
this
go through
question.
the process, but
Okay, you saying 205 be a reserve, 215 couldn't be a reserve?
we set the reserve whatever we want.
Okay, that's what I
But we
thought.
may end up putting ourselves in the position to have to go back and rebid if we don't make it.
But you're talking about what, almost 2 acres and a building?
1.7 acres after all the stuff's been whittled off of it. And then the other property is about 3/4 of an acre.
But with a building?
And the building, yeah.
On the 3090 property?
Well, the 3090 has a tin building on it too.
Yeah, it's not, I wouldn't classify it as a.
It's probably more of a liability than I said, but somebody might want to.
Sure, it's got antique value.
But keep in mind, 249 is not gonna be far from that corner. And if a business was wanting to relocate to Navasota, 205 is, to me, a very doable number.
I
215
thought
could be
I thought it
doable.
was low. I think we'll do better than that. But I'm not gonna count my chickens before they hatch either.
And
When do we anticipate on putting that on auction?
tomorrow, the next day. Very much sooner than later. We've got the appraisal, we were waiting for the appraisals.
Right.
We've been surveyed. What is the proper procedure? Do we advertise it in the paper or put a sign out?
Okay, procedurally, I just received the plat that we use for replatting that property.
Yes, sir.
Because it's a replat, we have to advertise it for 3 weeks. Put it in the paper starting next week.
Are you talking about both of them or just one?
Just the one, well, Piedmont will go along with Stoneham whenever.
Okay.
I would do those auctions at the same time,
Right.
but we need to complete the platting process, which is a 3-week advertising period.
Okay, so that's gonna carry us to
So
mid-September.
We're at the end of September. I don't want to go to auction until we get the EMS trailer moved,
Yes.
and I haven't heard that we even have a final price of the septic system or moving the trailer yet, so.
Yeah, we have those, they've been sent over to the auditor, and she had to look to make sure they wasn't on the what list?
The department, we have the W-9s, we have certain forms that we need to verify, so we're verifying those prior to anything.
Will that activity be able to happen before the end of September?
I don't
We
know
can
why
go
not.
ahead and order it, but we just have to follow the process that the auditor.
And our office, I believe we're good on our side, I'll double check that with Lisa. So I think it was a matter of where the funding was coming from.
put the improvements in there, we were still looking for money for the dump site improvements, and that's when I was gonna talk to Kurt, and that's why I put it on the agenda item
The
next
first.
week, the 1st of September.
Right.
But that if this budget is looking at adding that $10,000 improvement to this budget, then the septic system and the move comes out of road and bridge. We were just trying to see if we could go ahead and get that done, Harry, out of this year's budget.
So it doesn't take so much away from the
Yeah.
revenue coming in.
Yeah, I mean, if you got money in this year's budget to do it, that wouldn't hurt my feelings.
And we won't know that until we have next week's, the meeting on the 1st.
So it sounds like come the end of September, everything will be in place where we can start advertising the auction.
Yes, sir.
Oh, well.
We just the initial
The
timeline
actual
we gave.
move of the trailer could happen by the end of September.
I think it can.
I think so. We just gotta follow proper procedure, you know. I have 2 bids. I have to get 1 more, I think, to satisfy the auditor.
Why are we getting bids? We're under
Quotes, they're
50,000.
just quotes. They're quotes.
Okay, quotes.
We just quoted.
All right.
Quotes.
Okay.
Do you need any assistance, Commissioner Walker, in
No,
getting those
no,
quotes?
we talked about it at noon. I have 2 quotes, and then I was just gonna call Jollison while she checked with the auditor to see about going ahead and getting the septic done.
We can get that, yeah.
Right, so
We
we
get that
just
done.
need the one, and then it was the funding, and I knew that was on the next agenda too, to discuss on September 1st. So it would be by the end of next week. It should be
Because we
done.
were trying to see if we could get the, what was it, the septic out of this year's hospital budget.
Right.
If they were not gonna use that funding, and that's when they presented us with some invoices. So next week, I'm bringing the invoices to court, because it's not a big timeline in order to do these proposed projects that they want to do. So if we can get that done out of this funding, that would lessen the burden of the sale, on the sale. So
Definitely.
like I keep saying, a lot of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts.
But you don't have to do anything on the 3090 project when it's for property, when it's ready to go, it's ready.
The only thing we're still working on there is trying to get the easement between the 2 parcels abandoned. I just got a call back today from Energy saying they're clear. So I think that's all the utility companies. I now need to go to City of Navasota and request them to abandon that. And I've talked to their folks about it already. I don't think they'll have any issues with that, but we've got to go through their procedures. So I think that'll all be done well before we're ready to do the auction on the other property anyhow. So, and that will certainly enhance the value of that Piedmont property if it's 1 parcel instead of 2.
Oh, absolutely.
And also, we had a problem with getting in touch with Entergy.
Just
We've been waiting to hear from Entergy now.
Oh, Energy.
3 weeks or
Energy's
so.
Yeah.
On disconnection and the move. So if you got
That
contacts,
young lady that was here,
yeah.
the other day.
Bochin.
She has helped actually get the ball moving because I wasn't getting anywhere with
Yeah, we
them.
wouldn't.
And she, sent some emails and products to people, and they finally, 2 weeks later, got back to me.
Well, if you got another contact,
Let me know what you need.
we'd like to know who it is, because we're not getting a response from them.
what we need done is the power service put over to where,
Disconnected.
will disconnect from where it's currently at and be set up where, do we have a flag in the ground or a mark in the ground
She's
where
got a mark
that's
on
supposed to
there.
be? She who?
Cat.
Okay.
They'll want to be with her out there. Billy Phillips is the guy's name that came to me for the animal shelter.
She's
And,
gonna mark where the septic system and all of that needs to go, including that. We'll have to get a pole. I guess we'll have to get a pole.
Well, he said they furnish some of the poles, so depending on how far they have to go, we may not.
It's
have
just
to-
a drop down. It's a pole already there.
Okay, so, all right, in summary, who needs to contact Energy? Anybody at this moment?
Kat has already been trying to contact him, but if you have a different
Well-
contact, that's what we need.
I can give that to her.
Do you have Billy Phillips' contact?
I don't have that number. I've got Melissa's number.
She's back,
Okay.
If you could send that to me or send it to Kat.
just had her surgery, so she's back.
Okay, I'll get it to her.
And Angelica.
Yeah, because you're gonna need an electrician to hook up the trailer,
She's the only one that heard.
electric for the
Yeah.
septic thing and everything.
Yeah, I was telling him I had invited Kat to come over this weekend. This evening, because we were discussing some of her projects, but she just came back from surgery, and unfortunately, one of her workers has lost her mom, passed away, Miss Lisa, and somebody else is out, so they had to go do an inspection.
I can make myself available Monday or Tuesday, get a can of spray paint and a measuring tape and go out and put the footprint of where the trailer's going, so
Well, she-
Energy would know where the pole's gonna go if she needs assistance.
What's her working name? She and Philip, I think
Philip.
that's his name. Philip is gonna go over
Okay.
and take the road and do
Well,
that.
if my office can assist, we're available to do that. I'll send Sheree if I can't make it.
Yeah.
I'm teasing.
Just bring that big can.
All right. So,
Did you budget for a tape measure and a can of orange paint?
I can gratuitously donate that to the county. I've got my own personal 100-foot tape, and I've got orange paint. So, be quiet now.
If you don't have enough paint, I've got some, dude.
I don't have to do it, I'll give it to you.
Take the
Take
tape
some.
measure and the
That's what we got it this for, right? Yeah, we'll get Al out there to do it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Harry. Good.
Well, all right, so back to kind of where the discussion was, is that this is an optimistic outlook, Jesse, okay? Not as conservative as maybe you want. Is it okay to potentially put some additional revenue in on a particular line item that we think that we would have available from the sale of one of these or both of these properties?
I think you would be safe to put in the sale, if you're gonna set a reserve at 205 and 50,
Uh-huh.
I think that it would be safe to put that in there. The question that I would ask the court is, where are we putting it? Are we putting it in Fund 10, or are we putting it in Fund 20?
I think we need to put it in a fund that we don't have to declare it as an emergency expenditure.
Neither one you declare as an emergency. I just need to know which fund. I don't want to create just one specific fund just for this one purpose.
10 is what?
10 is general,
20 is what?
road and bridge.
I thought if we took it out of 10 though, if we took money out of fund balance that we,
Unappropriated.
It's only if you didn't
Each
budget-
fund
only if
has
you
their
didn't
own
budget it.
fund balance.
It's only if you didn't budget it.
okay.
So what you're asking of me is to go ahead and budget the revenue that we're anticipating on coming in from the sale of these two properties. That's what you're asking.
Well, I'm just
No,
kind of
I-
leading that direction because if we do that, that's almost enough money to eat up our project list.
Okay, right, but remember, our project list isn't consistent. There's only one project that pertains to road and bridge.
And that's the light equipment operator.
Yes, so, and also remember that there's other, other departments too. We didn't put their personnel on there as well, but there are, others that have requested additional personnel, but that's beside the point. My question to you is, I have no problem budgeting. If we feel like we are going to auction these, properties off next year or at the end of this year and hopefully sell them by next year, I have no problem with budgeting that revenue.
Okay.
My one concern that you would have to have is that if the property didn't sell, like you're budgeting these revenues, you don't want to put perpetual expenses in because this is a one-time revenue
Right.
stream. So at the end of the day, if we want to budget for it because we are talking about it and it sounds like it's going to be pushed through, which fund am I budgeting this revenue for? because it would either be Fund 10 or it would be Fund 20
I think the intent was to go to Fund 20.
for both properties.
Well, can you put the Piedmont, the 50,000 in 10 and the 205 in 20? Because there's only going to be some portion of that 205 left after we pay the expenses of whatever we don't get covered this year. Am I right in that statement? Is that right, Harry?
We are spending money actively on getting ready to sell those properties.
Right.
And that's been paid for out of Road and Bridge's budget.
So that's why I'm saying that 205 ought to go to Fund 20,
We
shouldn't
spent
it?
money on Piedmont too.
Sir?
We spent money on Piedmont too.
So you'd like to have that also?
Well, from the very beginning,
Okay.
the discussion was the proceeds from the sale were gonna pay for certain items, and the remainder was gonna go back into Road and Bridge's fund balance. Now I'm hearing, you know, you put it in the general fund, or we're
Well,
gonna put it in the project list.
I'm quite in favor of it going to I'm quite in favor of it going to Road and Bridge, because Road and Bridge is certainly one of our hot spots within the county.
Well, I don't know how comfortable I am in putting something in the budget before we get the actual check in hand. And then making decisions on how to spend that based on what we put in the budget that we don't even have yet. I'm all for, we need to certainly put back in Road and Bridge what he spent at a minimum to cover the sale of his property.
Agreed.
But his request on this project list is for a light equipment operator, and that's a perpetual expense, just like you alluded to, and I don't necessarily know, we haven't made a practice of doing
I would not
that.
recommend doing a perpetual expense on basis on a sale of a property. No, that is not my recommendation at all. One thing we can approach it as, and keep in mind, all revenues that we budget for, we're not guaranteed, right? Just like with COVID, when COVID hit, we weren't running as many courts, and those fees that we were anticipating on receiving, we didn't receive. However, I can understand the concern. I have a concern of that too. But what we could do is not budget it, and when it does happen, then we can bring that before court as far as the new money received, if that would make the court feel better. We're able to bring that in. But and you don't even have to bring that in if you don't anticipate on spending it. You had mentioned it going back into fund balance to build up some of your reserves. So I am okay with either way, just not with budgeting a perpetual expense based on the sale.
Mr. Walker, how much roughly have you spent on preparing for the sale? Right off the top of your head, I'm not trying to nail you down exactly.
We have spent to date probably $15,000. And the big ticket items to come are the septic system and moving the trailer, the EMS trailer. I know Patty had a list, I didn't bring it, I should have, so what we had spent to date, and we just got a bill from the surveyor, like $5,600. So I think the total to date has been about $15,000, and I think Cap was saying, what, 10 on the septic system?
No, it's a little bit less. What was the
It was
Maybe it's 10.
75.
10
It was
with
over
the septic and moving the trailer.
No, it
10
was,
was the improvements for the,
10, it's 75, anywhere from 75 to 80,000 on the septic, on the quotes we got. And on the, move, we were quoted, if I made no mistake, 8,000, somewhere like that, and I could be wrong, it might be 4,500. I don't know. I can look at my email.
I don't get that one ton van out there no longer.
Let me look at my email, okay?
Alan and I are gonna
Bring
move
my
the trailer on a personal time.
Well, we had somebody
We'll send our quote.
that was willing to do it for free.
No, I didn't say free.
I said we did get an offer for somebody everybody's gonna do it for free. If they don't do sit up and, you know, they don't level, they don't take out the pours, they just move it.
Do that too, so.
So you said the big expenses were to come, the septic and the move of the EMS, so you were anticipating on having to pay for the whole thing for the EMS?
That, yes, that was from the very beginning, from that first email I sent out, saying, you know, expenses associated with cleaning up that site so we could sell it, and could move the trailer and everything. You know,
And
I thought that was pretty appropriate, that be paid out of the proceeds of the sale.
Gotcha, okay.
So
So that does
you're
not-
saying maybe another 15,000 on top of that?
So how much is in his fund balance? It's a designated fund balance for
We went over this.
Is it one?
Yeah, it was only, did we say 4.5 months? 4.5 months reserves?
About 4.5 months, yeah. Roughly 2.9 million. And we have some money that's gonna come out of that on this 215 project because the CTIF grant isn't gonna cover all of that.
It was to crush and haul away the other building was 85. To do the EMT port building, that's 45. 45.
The first one was how much?
That was the old building, demolishing the old building was 85. That's where I got the 85
Okay,
from.
so 45 to
Yeah,
move it,
45.
and 8,000 for the septic, 12 and a half. So we're gonna be at 25, 28,000 so it gets paid for out of the sale.
So in essence, we're basically down to what the property brings in Stone as far as, I don't really know what to call it, but money that could be spent. Because the other property is probably gonna consume the cost for both with just a little bit of change left over. Is that fair to say?
Right, yeah, I understand.
Because I think if we just speculate a little bit, that it's gonna be about 35,000 probably, once it's all said and done.
That would be my guess.
So what figure are you comfortable with in your fund balance?
Well, I mean, whatever the sale brings, less the expenses, is what we talked about. I don't have a specific plan for spending that fund balance. We put it there, you know, for future needs. I don't have a spending plan for our fund balance.
I got you, but there's gotta be a figure probably that you're more comfortable with. Is 4 months enough, or do you like?
I'm comfortable with the 4.5 months. You know, I've always been taught 3 to 6 months fund balance on your operating expenses. If we got down to 3 months, I'd start getting a little nervous. 6 months, I think, is more than enough for anything that's likely to happen.
So 4.5 is a happy medium for you?
Yeah, the 4.5's a happy medium. I'm comfortable with that. I'm not sure the auditor is, but, you know, I'm comfortable with that. I mean, if, you know, the amount of money we've got in there would cover a lot of disasters that might come along.
So if we put 100,000 from the sale, potentially, if we have a reserve, I'm just going off those speculate, that'd give you about $3 million in your fund balance. And that'd leave about $100,000 left from the sale that we could possibly use on some of these other projects. Not all those are round numbers, but
What number did you say?
That was possible to use on which projects?
the project list.
So you're saying out of the sale, if you sell 255,000, put 100,000 in road and bridge and 155 in general?
Or you're gonna take about 35.
Pay the expenses.
Up to
Expenses.
35, yes.
Whatever's, take 100,000 from the sale of the property and and reimburse the expenditure for the sale. And that's gonna leave you about 100,000 roughly to address some of these other issues. Now, I know Mr. Walker wants a light equipment operator, and that may be something we might need to talk about, but I think you're getting into issues where that would be ample for some of these projects to do most of them.
Did you call her, Jesse? You got it.
So I'm budgeting for the revenue, for the sale of these buildings.
Yes, you could.
And,
I wouldn't, well, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, I mean, I'm just speculating. We're spending money before we have it in our hands, which is very dangerous in my opinion, but if we're gonna talk about it, I guess we can.
If you're gonna well, you're talking about using it for projects, so
Portion.
using a portion of it for projects, you're already talking about that. So you're spending it, whether it be the whole thing or not, you're spending it prior to. So,
We're spending it on paper, we're not spending it in actuality, because if the revenue doesn't come in, then you don't do the projects.
well, that's easy to say that, but then if it's in their budget, the money's in their budget to spend, there's nothing holding them back from spending it. So
Then put it in my budget.
I can put it in the contingency. And then it's over the direction of you guys, and then once the money comes in, then that holds it, it's a holding place, is what it is.
424 contingency.
Right,
That's fine.
right.
That's a
So
solution.
if we budget for the revenue and say, but I need to know how much to budget in Fund 10 and how much to budget in Fund 20, and you're saying budget 100,000 in Fund 10, the other portion in Fund 20, you're shaking your head no, okay?
He said
You're shaking-
100,000 in Fund
20.
20.
Well, it's
That's
100
relative.
plus he's saying 100,000 goes to their fund balance, well, 100,000 plus the 35,000
For
anticipated on
expenses.
doing this to prepare, the preparation. So that's 135,000.
Okay.
Because, yes.
And then we're gonna set a
Out
reserve,
of the sale.
do what?
I was trying to clarify, he said the reimbursement for the expenditures, I'm just clarifying what you said, and plus the 100. That's 135, that's what.
So we're gonna do 135 for road and bridge, for the sale of the building, right? We're gonna set a reserve for $255,000. Is that correct?
For both.
He had both of you.
Is that correct?
So now you have 120.
Yes, so then 120, I'm budgeting the revenue in general, Fund 10.
Okay.
Well, let's,
And then that 120,000 in general, in revenue, I'll budget in a contingency for the expenses.
yeah, I don't know that, I mean, I was just thinking about $100,000 even
That's what.
For general?
for general, and put the rest in the road and bridge.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay.
Now, if she puts the 100 in 10, do we want to have any further discussion on funding anything else on the project list, or are we done?
No, I think that's what
Can I
it's
speak
for.
to that?
Sir,
Yeah, I think that's what we would, I mean, yeah, we need to probably pick out which.
we need to prioritize these in our discussion today.
We wouldn't necessarily have to do it today, but these are the things, I mean,
That could be a later discussion if it's going into contingency.
Sir,
That could be a later discussion if it's in.
a later discussion after the budget's approved in September, sometime in October, November, where we see the urgency?
yeah, right.
I'm okay with that.
We will have the money budgeted in the contingency fund, so making an immediate decision on these.
And that way we get the money in,
Unless y'all want to, I'm here.
and that way we get the money in hand, and then we know where we can indeed allocate it. That's fine.
Okay, so this now becomes the project list dash contingency. So what if the money comes in, then we can inform the court's gonna know, and if they want to expend, then this would be the list we would go off of.
Okay.
Based
And
on-
then when we get 300,000 for the properties, say we did, then the difference would roll into the general fund, is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, well, and I guess that's the other question that still remains. I mean, do we get out of the sale of the money, the 100,000, and then if we got 300,000, that would leave 200,000 to go back into road and bridge? Or do we keep anything in excess of 135,000, which I think we probably should.
Yeah, I think it should go in road and bridge. Any excess.
So back to the question I have, and we're building this list on contingency, but you're talking about adding a perpetual position.
No,
No,
You're not?
no.
Okay, so that's.
no, not on the sale of equipment. Now, road and bridges money, because you're spending the money already for preparation of this. So all of the money that goes into your fund, we won't increase your expenditures. We'll just budget for that revenue, and that's gonna help build the reserves up.
Well, at this point, I don't think there's any other way to do it. I would have liked to have gotten the expense money back in the current budget. I don't know if there's any way to do that. But we have not done things because we're spending money on the sale. And it's not gonna happen in time to fund, you know, our actual budget for this year.
So,
We
right,
need
so
those
the
additional
only,
funds in this coming budget.
That's what I'm
that
saying,
we
the
can go ahead and
expense
fund.
money, I would like to see in our current budget for 2022. Because we postponed and not done some things that we would have done otherwise.
So those aren't reflected in this current.
but we're also not thinking, so here would be my proposal for that, is don't budget for it right now, because we have the concern of it not coming in. So you're gonna spend your budget no matter what, because you have to get your roads and everything else done. The contingency and non-departmental, that's just dependent upon if these funds come in. So maybe if the revenue does, we can budget for the revenue, anticipate it, and if it does happen to go through, we can always bring it back before court to increase at that point in time.
That's
Are you-
fine, just don't make me declare it an emergency item to do that,
Yeah, would
but
that
it won't be.
require, or does he need a contingency in his as well?
Yeah, maybe a contingency, probably a contingency line item.
I think we put
I
that
think
in
that's-
his as well.
Let's do the
Better, because
contingency.
I've got a fundamental problem with the whole idea of budget transfers have to be an emergency.
Not the transfers do not.
The amendments do.
The
The budget amendment is still,
Yeah.
Okay, hang on, let them get this finished.
So we'll create a contingency line for road and bridge, and we'll put the 35,000 in that.
that will work.
Now, excuse me, were you talking about this year? You said you would like to see the money come back to your budget. Did
In the
any?
beginning, when we started this process back last February, I was hoping to have this all done this year, and the expenses that we're foregoing, the expenses that we're incurring now, that money would come back into our current budget because we're foregoing some expenditures to cover all this. That was my thinking. Well, things are taking much longer. The money's not gonna come back in during this fiscal year. But there are things we have not done, postponed, that we would have done and should have done. I would like to have that money, at least for the expense money, available in the budget, not in fund balance.
For next
What I'm
year?
saying, for next year.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah, because we're not getting
I was
that
trying to
check
follow
until
y'all's
next year.
conversation.
So we place it in a
Promise,
contingency, so he can use that, instead of having to come back.
For next year?
For a budget amendment, it would
Right.
be considered a line item transfer.
Yeah, yeah, if we had a contingency line item, then it's just a line item transfer. Right.
It is, yeah, it would still come
Yeah,
before
that would
court.
be preferable.
Yes, no expenses will be coded out of the contingency, that's a holding place. So however you guys see fit, that's when we'll prepare the transfer, transferring it to whichever line.
But we still have a month and a couple of days. And if we have a month and a couple of days, I don't think we can sell the property, so take that out of the equation. But we can put in septic, we can move the trailer, we can get the power relocated. So all of those expenses could be covered under this year's budget, yes?
Yes, that's what.
But he wants to be
Okay.
reimbursed next year for not being able to do those projects this year.
Well, it would, to be covered under this year's budget, then it's gonna have to come out of our fund balance. And I don't know how much we're gonna have at the end of the year, but it's not gonna be a whole lot.
Well,
Even with the weather and all of that stuff, you don't have a whole lot of money remaining with all the,
We're spending money as fast as we can right now. And we're behind,
right?
and, you know, our heavy expenses for the paving and everything come at the end of the year. We'll be paving up until September 30th.
Okay.
And it's, the size of the bills coming in the next month or 5 weeks are gonna be substantial. I mean, I just gave you those two.
When, you guys discussed this, property and all of the rearranging this year, right? We didn't know about it and all of that
We didn't get authorization to sell it until this year.
until then.
and just to throw a monkey wrench in the thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm just gonna throw it out there and y'all can tell me in scat or whatever. The discussion with the hospital is about their line item and asking permission to use some of their money to cover some of these expenses that might could occur this year out of this year's budget.
But he's already said he understands that those expenses should be covered from the proceeds of the sale.
Right, so the question that I was asked, if we did some of that now out of their budget, just like you're talking about a contingency for their, remember I asked you the question, he said, could it roll over into next year or whatever if, yeah, maybe I'm not explaining, but you know, you and I talked about it.
Yes. And we said we don't roll over from one year to the
Yeah, we
next.
said we didn't roll over, but so with that in mind, if some of these things could be paid for out of EMS's budget this year, that's where I was going with that. The things that pertain to the move of the EMS, if they're not gonna use the money, if the court doesn't agree for them to be reimbursed for the things that they've done, even if after being reimbursed, there's still a difference of $10,000.
Are you talking about the 15,000 that's budgeted for EMS that y'all just
No,
approved?
I'm talking about the 45,000 remaining that we got.
You're talking about hospital, not
Hospital.
EMS.
Hospital, am I saying it wrong?
EMS
saying
is
EMS.
15,000.
Hospital. I was trying to ask the question this coming Wednesday. If the court agreed to reimburse them, even with the reimbursement, there should be about $10,000 left in this year's budget in the hospital line. That if we can't agree to get this, the other project done, then you got 10,000 sitting there that could have paid for some of the EMS move this year.
So, how much that's the 33,000 that you're talking about?
Yes.
That we talked about yesterday?
Yes.
Okay.
So the only
34.
thing I would
34.
say is if you're, the 35,000 that he said, approximately it would cost about 35,000 to get everything prepared for the sale, which included the moving of the EMS, the septic, the surveying, and whatever else that consisted of.
Site preparation.
If you are planning on paying using the St. Joseph's money, the
For the
10,000.
EMS things, not for the whole thing.
To what?
Just for
Yes,
the
if you're
EMS.
planning on using the 10,000 for the EMS only, then wouldn't you increase the general revenue from 100,000 to 110,000 to come back, because then you're no longer responsible for it. So you're not gonna
Right.
spend $35,000, you're gonna
I'm
spend.
not responsible for that part of it anyway, they're taking care of that.
But just a minute ago, you said, I understand the septic and the moving of the trailer being part
I'm
of
not responsible.
the
for
proceeds.
that. The proceeds, from
You
the
un-
beginning, I said, the proceeds should pay for that.
Yes, that's what I'm apologizing.
If she can pay for it out of EMS funds, I don't know if you're gonna have to reimburse them in the next budget,
Well, that's what they were hoping.
or is it just funds they're not gonna spend?
I don't know, I'm just throwing it at the court. That's why I say I was throwing a monkey wrench in.
Yeah, if they have funds available that would expedite getting this stuff done sooner rather than later, and then reimburse it out of the proceeds later, that doesn't make any difference to me. It helps facilitate the process.
Right, so
That could be money
instead,
going into the contingency that could be spent somewhere.
so instead of 100,000 coming to the general, it would be 110 and 145 going to Broken Bridge, if they're gonna pay for it.
The rest
That's-
from Road Bridge.
But he's wanting money to finish out the rest of this year, right? The rest of your budget this year.
No, for next year.
Yeah, when the proceeds come in.
Well, just
You got enough
dump
to
my,
finish it.
I don't wanna put that money back into my budget on September 28th, and then it all rolls into fund balance on the 30th. There's no point. I'm gonna be paying it the rest of the year, we're not gonna have the opportunity to spend it this year, but there are things that we would have done this year that still need to be done.
and you usually still do level up and all of that in October. I've seen you do
But that's
that.
out of next year's budget.
Huh?
That's out of next year's.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We
So
still
you're
may be
asking-
paving, but that's new money.
Yeah, but you're asking it to be placed in next year's budget. That's why I say you, if it's contingency put in there, you could still use it come the first of the year.
Yeah, if it's in the contingency line item, then we can use it during the course of the 22 fiscal year.
Well, don't worry about me muddling whatever y'all do. I just thought that was a thought to try to pay for some of it this year. But not if it's gonna remove it coming from out of the proceeds.
But you're talking about doing a $10,000 line item transfer from hospital budget to Mr. Walker's budget this year, right?
Where would you?
EMS needs to pay for moving the trailer. I would move it, if you move from a hospital, move to the EMS budget. Or,
But EMS doesn't have the money, so if, let's just take all of that out of the equation.
Yeah, just take it out.
Let's just take it out of the equation. Where would this have been coded to? It would have been coded out of your budget. Is that correct?
what?
If you had the funds available.
No, it was always, they were going to take care of the expense of moving the trailer
No,
up front,
no.
because it always had to be done before we could sell the property. That was always the thinking, that out of, whether general fund, fund balance, whatever, those expenses had to be incurred up front and would be reimbursed upon the sale of the property.
But it wasn't like that. The sale of the property, the moving of the building, all of that was going to come out of the sale of the property.
Correct. But the initial expense was gonna have to be covered from somewhere else.
Until the money came in from the sale.
So
But we
could
never
sell the-
discussed it coming out of hospital line. I'm just presenting that idea now.
Oh,
Okay.
You have a part in this?
Yes, I do. Come October 1, I do. If we get a meeting with Kurt, I can talk to him and say, look, come October 1, let's address all this stuff, because we got some. You have enough in your hospital fund now, correct? To cover these costs?
No,
No?
not until we have that discussion with the hospital.
Okay. But you do?
Barring, we're not paying for the
Right.
expenses that they've been.
Right, absolutely. So once we have our meeting with Kurt and get that lined out, I think that's an option, a viable option, and then we can address them in the following year if he'll agree to it, if he won't.
Well, let me add this, Al, because I want to make sure we're clear. We never discussed any of the move for the EMS building coming out of the hospital line. It was coming out of the proceeds from the sale.
Right.
Which I assumed was coming out of Road and Bridge because the proceeds were
Right.
going to.
We
Road
never
and Bridge.
discussed it coming out of EMS. I mean, hospital. Because you would have made sure I talked to the hospital about it.
Right, you can't.
And I
put in
just
their
brought that up
funds.
just last week. so.
Yeah.
So County Clerk, what have we decided?
Well, what I have is that y'all were gonna put $100,000 in a contingency fund for Road and Bridge, and the rest goes into a contingency fund. Fund 10 contingency fund, the rest go into Road and Bridge Fund 20 in a contingency fund. Is that changed?
That's where we were. But he asked the question, what if we exceed the amount of the 255,000, right?
Then
That
you'll
was
have
your
excess
question.
funds.
Where would that go?
I think you put it, in my opinion, you put it back in the road.
That was the last question before we went off on.
What to do with the excess funds, yes. And I think the consensus was to put it back in Road and Bridge.
But where does the $10,000 come from?
What 10,000?
Aren't we talking about $10,000?
As a possibility. I think it was a
It
possibility.
was a remaining amount that might have been left in the hospital.
I got you,
There
I
was,
got you.
that was the, I guess, confusion between who was paying.
Yeah, that's
for
why I
what.
said, let's pull that out.
But, I mean, it's gotta come out of somewhere this year.
Yeah.
But Al's promising
Be done.
money next year that he, weren't you?
I'm not promising nothing. No, I didn't promise nothing. I was trying to make a solution. That solution, Commissioner Walker made sure that I wasn't promising nothing.
Right.
And that's absolutely what I like. Thank you. Nope, Al's out. Don't even try. I was just throwing it out
I
there.
removed that from the table. If we get there, we get there. If it's something we end up and can pay for, then I hate to see money just sit there and not be.
So at the end of the day, if all of the money from the sales is going to go back to Road and Bridge in some shape, form, or fashion, after the expenses have been paid for moving EMS and relocating and putting the septic tank in, there's no reason for us to have any further discussion on this project list because I feel relatively comfortable that our Road and Bridge Commissioner is not going to pay for restoration of tax records or the cleanup or dump site improvements or counseling services for CVC or any of that. Is that a fair statement?
No, sir.
No.
Well, yes, it's a fair statement. I'm just making a suggestion. The suggestion that I had
Yes.
was simplified. We take $100,000 out of whatever the proceeds are of the sale of 2 properties that have a reserve of $255,000. Anything above the $100,000 and the remainder of the 250 goes back to Road and Bridge.
But 100,000 goes into Fund 10.
That we would use for working on the project
That we
list.
would at a later date, unless you want to do it.
No, I was in agreement with that 45 minutes ago, Commissioner.
Hey, so was I.
I'm so sorry. I was trying to come up with a solution.
So, is it fair to say then we have 100,000 that we want to apply to the project list if we feel like there's any that we want to cover?
In a contingent.
No, I understand.
Okay.
So, all right. And because some of these priorities might change a little bit later, we don't need to make a decision on prioritizing them today.
Right.
That being said, is there a motion to adjourn?
Wait a minute.
That's too fast.
We also need to put a contingency over 35,000 for Road and Bridge to cover.
I have that, yes.
Okay.
But then you called Al an hour ago.
Well, let's
Oh,
get
yeah.
that off the tape.
Well, yeah, we talked
didn't
about
take
how
that off the
with the
table?
75,000 for the generator, putting it in a contingency instead of in your budget. In the event that it is paid for by ARPA.
And that was
If
his
it's not, it
suggestion.
will be transferred to you. If it is, you'll get the ARPA money, and we can use that budget for other.
One way or the other, you get the money.
Yes.
Maybe.
I would like to see it stay in his budget.
Me too. Because I gave you a conservative budget and.
Well, and that's what the question too, is like, do you have other projects that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Okay, so then y'all,
so we'll leave it in Al's at 75.
that is fine, because now you have this contingency that's built up.
Right, he doesn't have the
100.
budget, the
Right.
projects he thinks he's got.
Yes,
but we can
I'm
transfer some out.
good. Let's move on.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
That's why we wanted to talk to you.
So
Okay.
really, for the-
In all serious, what?
One more question. Who's paying for the septic and the MS trailer being moved? And is that gonna happen before the end of the current fiscal year?
The answer to that is we're gonna try.
And
Where's
that
that
is
money coming from?
out of the sale.
Well, it's still gotta be budgeted this year.
It has to come from a line item and
From a line item
expense it
first.
out. So we know at the end of the day, when everything's said and done, the money will, the proceeds, a portion of the proceeds will cover the move of the EMS and the septic. We know that. But the question, I think, is where is it being coded to, the expense?
Where should it be coded to?
Well, I
Well, it won't
personally
have
thought
to
it,
be
you're
here.
gonna be mad, but I, my understanding of it was it's coming from the proceeds, the money was going to road and bridge, so it'd be in there. I just looked, you don't really have a line item other than the purchase of a building, so I would have to get back to you on that.
It's
Unless
gonna
we
be
do
after
it
the
like
first of the year.
non-departmental. What?
Unless it's done after the first of the year.
But he's saying that, yeah, well, even at the first of the year, you're gonna have to have an expense line, so we could do it to non-departmental.
Well, the first of the year will be contingency.
The thing about it is, we're trying to get this, we gotta move the trailer and the septic
Prior to
before
selling.
the sale.
I'm not disagreeing,
And I
that's,
thought that's where the $10,000 was
That's
coming
where I
from,
thought she was going.
from the hospital section. But that's not.
That could be a possibility though, if y'all
It
talk.
could be a possibility, that's not where it was coming from.
how about this? How about this? So we said no, let me look. Hang on. So we can get up.
If she throws in papers, I'm out of here.
She's not gonna,
Because she'll
she's
expect me to
professional,
pick 'em
she's not
up.
gonna throw it in papers.
Expect you to do, I put your friend down.
Hey, you said that on camera.
I'm sorry.
Your evaluation will reflect it.
I apologize.
Still get a 3.
Thank God she sits under the district judge.
You're the one, you got 3. She
I'm
didn't
not yet.
You
I
got
what?
3.
He was gonna do you an evaluation, I said, you sit under the district judge.
Oh, yes.
It's all right, and I put his casters on his chair.
Are you threatening? Yeah, it
Nope.
sounded like it.
Nope, I just said what I do.
I'm gonna leave that alone.
Okay, so we have a professional, is that a professional service? You put that under
Yep.
professional service?
It's gonna take a professional moving group to move it, it's gonna take a professional
Really
moving
not.
group to dig the septic tank.
It's really not when you say it like
Not my
that.
professional services,
Do what?
not my professional services.
Oh my gosh, Harry, calm down, please.
I don't think he's got too upset yet.
Professional.
Jesse.
So we have a non-departmental professional services. So if there's only 9,000 budgeted, if, well, that's next year. How much is that? Oh, it has, so what we could do is if St. Joseph's agreed to pay for it, then we could transfer that money into non-departmental professional services. But if St. Joseph's didn't agree to it, we have no money budgeted for that, for this year.
That's where we are, because we should have discussed this before now.
You have 9,000 in there, you said?
No, that's for next year, I apologize.
Well, if worse comes to worse, we just sell the property after the first of the year.
That's right.
I mean,
That's what I said.
we're talking 35 days roughly.
It takes 3 weeks for him to get the plat through.
I don't know,
That's fine.
are you waiting desperately on that money? Can you wait till October 1st or after?
Wait till the cows come home.
But I mean,
No, I mean, seriously, we got off the utilities, we have no expense associated with that property.
At least mine will.
It's just whenever we're gonna get the money back in to pay for what we're spending, and put it back in the county's budget.
Which you've already said you would rather have that back after the first of the year.
Yeah, 'cause if I get it back now, it's just gonna go back to the fund balance anyway, because we won't have an opportunity to spend it.
So if we do it October 1st, if we do it then, you have the 100,000 in contingency at a minimum. I can prepare the line item transfer to professional services to cover it. And, because we had 20,000 budgeted in there for revenues, no matter what, from our ad valorem, all of our revenues we were anticipating on receiving next year. So that 20,000 could cover it, do that transfer from that contingency, and then hopefully we will, receive the money
So,
from the sale of the property.
I was just gonna say the other thing, if we got the work done still in the middle of September, the moving and the septic, by the time we get the invoice and run it through.
No, that's not how it works.
It'll
So
break my
we-
house.
Yeah, it's got to have an October 1 date on the invoice.
Well, and we don't pay, we should not pay for things that, you know.
We haven't done that.
okay, so you're saying currently this year, there's 20,000 that could cover the expenses for EMS in 424?
Say again?
Currently, you're talking about 20,000 in Department 424 that could cover the septic and the move. That's
For next year.
for next year?
For next year.
We'll have it.
You'd have to do it October 1st.
Okay, so everything needs to halt now until October 1st.
Don't stop anything.
That's right,
It's taken us 6 months to get where we are.
that's right.
Yeah, but just heard us say it can't be.
Unless St. Joseph's agrees to pay for that. And now if they agree to pay for it, we'll move the funds over and it can be done this year. But that, you will not find that out, I guess, until September 1st? Is
We
that
won't
correct?
find that out till we talk about it here in the court.
So, okay, so the 1st. Okay, so those are the two options. Are we good?
As good as we do, I think.
Seriously, Commissioners, on agenda item number 3, discuss and review the Grimes County FY 2022 budget. Are there any comments or discussion that you'd like to have at this time? Hearing none, I'll go to agenda item number 4. Is there a motion to adjourn?
How about we adjourn?
Second. There's a motion before the court by Commissioner Belbedinsky on agenda item number 4, seconded by Commissioner Malley. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The time is 2:24.